Good afternoon, everyone. This is Clem with Queenie's Book Talk and Reviews, and I am your literary ambassador. And today I have Dr. Velma Bagby on, and we're going to be talking about relationships and dating in the 21st century. And we're going to be talking about dating apps, the 40-day rule, dating questions, conditions versus characteristics, and your wise counsel. Welcome, Dr. Velma. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. I'm
Okay.
excited to be here with you.
Okay, please tell us about yourself.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Velma Bagby. I am a 6-time award-winning author. I am an ordained minister. I'm married to a pastor. I'm a pastor's wife. I'm a mother of 2 adult daughters, and I have 1 son-in-law, 3 grandchildren who I love, and I have a writing buddy. Her name is Gracie, and she's my German Shepherd. And I've been writing since 2018, but the area that I love to write about is dating and relationships. So I'm excited to be with you today, Miss Queenie.
Thank you. Now, tell us what intentional dating is.
Intentional dating is a strategy of dating that helps you to ask specific questions, look for specific clues, to really kind of interrogate and interview the potential guy that you may be interested in. It's serious dating because the whole idea is that the goal is marriage. And so therefore it changes how you date, changes who you date, it changes how long you entertain exploring that person as a possibility. It changes all of that. And so intentional dating is those daters who are interested in marriage. This is not for those who are looking to just date for fun or date socially. These are people who are serious about marriage. And just like anything else that you set as a goal, to be intentional means that this is your goal. Marriage is your goal.
Okay. Where do you think dating has gone wrong?
There are so many levels of wrong with dating today that it's unbelievable. I think the first thing that happened as when I did the research and looked at the demise of marriage and how marriage has slowly ended in divorce more and more, whether you're in the church, outside of the church, a believer or non-believer, it's just awful out there. Then you look at all the tragedies, the situations where women ended up in abusive situations, toxic relationships, some even got killed. All of those situations, this kind of dating style that we've adopted is only just a couple of 100 years old. And because of that, we no longer apply the principles we used to be taught, we used to share, we used to teach our daughters. All of it was intended to help them date safely, scrutinize the guy carefully, and not get caught up in some of the messes that we see today. So that's the reason I began to start writing about it, talking about it, because after years of counseling with my husband and marriage counseling, as well as pre-marriage counseling, you can see the wreck that this process has had on really having successful marriages. We've been married for 48 years, and my hope and my prayer is that what I talk about would help other women discover the same, a lifelong mate.
Okay. How has dating changed since you were dated?
It's going back to what I was saying. And when I dated in the 70s, I was in the 10th grade when I met my husband, but I didn't meet him to marry him. I just met him in high school. And so when I talk about dating, I'm not talking to high schoolers. And we tend to push our youth into this process when they're not really emotionally ready. I mean, this process can leave you broken and hurt, disappointed, even bitter. I mean, there's a lot of chances that you take in it, and youth are not ready for that. So social dating is what we did back in my day. We were a lot more mature. Where we were mentally as young people, it's totally different where young people are now. We were prepared differently. We were more mature. And so therefore, if that was something we wanted to do, we could, but because we were ready for it. But young people are not ready for any of that right now. And they really don't have the tools for dating socially. And so it's misunderstood among the young people, and it's abused also. I see a lot of young women young girls being abused in the process because they really don't know what they're doing. So dating with intent helps those who are serious daters who whose goal is to get married at the end of it all. And so therefore, that's what you do. Even in business, when you want to go in business with someone, you're not going to just jump into business with them and you don't know what their financial history is like. You don't know what their successes is like. You don't know if what they're telling you they do really is real. So you're going to do your homework and make sure that this business is who they say they are before you partner with them. It's the same with dating. You want to make sure that that guy is who he says he is before you partner with him.
What are other experts saying about the Christian dating?
I don't know if what they may be saying, and they may not necessarily agree because they're still stuck on promoting this process that's only just a couple of 100 years old. And so it, again, leaving you broken and making mistakes and all of the other things. But it doesn't have any strategy, it doesn't have any goal, none of that. And a lot of people, even on online dating, if you ask the right questions, the guys will tell you right away, oh, I'm just looking to, if you asked why are you interested in dating me? And many of them will say, I'm just looking to have fun. So if you're a serious dater, then okay, swipe. That's not the one I want to talk to. And so that's what's important. And so I think part of it is the fact that it has Christian on it makes people kind of shy away, but it's not necessarily true. It has great principles if you practice it. It has great principles to keep you safe and make good decisions.
Okay, how do you feel about the LGBT dating of today?
I don't have any perspective on that. I don't have any experience about that. I have to promote what I know and have been taught in scripture. And so therefore, I don't get into that at all. My message and my lane is to speak to women who are interested in finding their male husband. And that's where I stay. I can't engage in a conversation I have no expertise about. So I'm staying in my lane, and that's the lane I'm going to remain in.
Okay. Why is it so hard for a woman or a man to commit?
I think it has a lot to all the broken experiences they've had using the dating process that we apply now. I think it's all of that. I think it's part of that. I think it's fear sometimes. And it also goes back to not knowing what to do, not knowing what to ask, not having a strategy in terms of, you mentioned some of the things we are going to talk about, the wise counsel and understanding the specific questions you should ask to really scrutinize the person and uncover any kind of red flags that you might see or hear, and pay attention to that. And those are definitely deal breakers, and stop making excuses for the bad behavior that you see already, or the red flags you've already seen. Stop making excuses for them and accept them. They're red for a reason. It's a warning sign.
Right.
The stop sign is red for a reason. Stop. And so it's paying attention to that on purpose. And so dating with intent is purposeful. It has a goal, and you do those things on purpose because the end result that you want is a marriage to the right person.
Why is it so hard to date in the 21st century?
Because we don't know what we're doing. Most people, again, applying these haphazard processes, which doesn't make any sense. I've watched women who meet someone and they immediately invite them over to their home. I'm going, what kind of craziness is that? You invite a stranger to your home? What, you don't even know him, don't have any background on him, haven't done any, really haven't done your due diligence to find out who this person really is. Because dating safely has to do with making sure you remain in public when you're trying to get to know a person. If that's what you want to do, you want to go out and meet them, then you go out and meet in a public place. You don't have them pick you up at your house because you don't want them to know where you live yet. You're just trying to get to know this person and to see whether or not this will move forward. So I think a lot of the practices goes back to what I said, this dating process that's been practiced for a couple of 100 years old. It's not safe. It doesn't help you scrutinize the person enough to really jump into a relationship with them.
Okay. What are the next steps after the potential dating?
The next steps from meeting the person? Well, the first thing you want to do is ask the questions you want to know, because if that person can't answer it, or they're uncomfortable answering it, those are your flags that begin to pop up because now you're being specific in terms of what your intent is. And then you're expressing your intent. Now, you might say that my goal in dating is to discover who my lifelong mate is. He might say the same thing early on, but it still does not necessarily mean he's your guy or you're his person. You still have to do your due diligence and continue to ask those specific questions to really kind of uncover who this guy is. And my favorite out of the book is when the young lady asks the catfish, what do you do and for work? And he says he worked nights. Now, she never got into the details about what he meant by that. She had no idea that he was just a schemer out at the club every night looking for his next project. She never got into the details. And so that's why it's important that we get into the details. And that's what the current process does not do enough of.
Well, in this day and age, you said something about social dating. Do you say what do you say to women who don't want this intentional dating?
I say, okay, see how it turns out for you. See how many mishaps you have as a result, because that's what's going to happen. See what you end up with, because you didn't ask any questions and you didn't do your due diligence to look at the background, the expertise and experience of this person. You have nothing to go by to make a decision in terms of whether or not this person is your lifelong mate. And so what the current dating process does is it focuses on conditions. It looks at what he looks like. It looks at the kind of job he has, the kind of car he drives, how much money he has. It looks at his physical attributes and qualities. Nothing about him in particular to see who this person really is. They keep him a secret. This whole craziness about dating in secret, because I'm grown. That was the cliche for a while. I'm grown. Everybody's in my business. No, you shouldn't date in secret. It never was that way. The father was the one who actually made sure this guy was okay to even come to his house to see his daughter. And so it was the father's role originally, but with the way the makeup of the household has torn down over the years, there's no fathers in the home. In many cases, the father is in the home, but doesn't know his job in terms of keeping an eye out for those guys who date his daughter. And so we came up with another process, which is what we've always done, because in our families, we always had an Aunt Marie who was 85 years old you can go to get some wisdom. We always had a grandma or someone senior in the family that we can go to. Even that has gone away, which is why we have so many coaches now. A coach used to be Aunt Marie. A coach used to be your grandmother, your grandfather. They were the wisdom keepers who kind of gave you some guidelines and helped you when you hit a rough patch. Now we have to create a new kind of a group of coaches, and they're really your wise counsel who would help you to vet this guy. Because when your heart is too close, sometimes you don't see those red flags, some of the ones that you need to see, but it's your wise counsel, those people you select. Look, I need you to be there for me. If I meet this guy and bring him around you, I want you to be honest with me about what you pick up on, all of that. That's important to keep you safe and make good, sound decisions. Yes. And so I think that's what's missing. We don't have that anymore, but we don't practice those kind of principles anymore.
Right. Okay. How do you feel about the new technology of texting instead of being face to face?
I think it's fine for a while, because really in the beginning, you don't want to meet a stranger face to face. You really want to get to know what this person is all about. And at some point, as you ask those questions, somewhere he's going to give you a clue in terms of what his intent is and what you can learn about him through the questions that you have with that person. And so I'm fine with it. I have a technology savvy daughter. The guy that she was talking to, it was all by Instagram messaging. That's all they did until finally they decided to meet in person. But it was important to build that rapport first, get to know what this person is all about, get to know what they do, get to know what they like to do, in terms of outside of work, just kind of get an idea of what he's all about before you actually see them face to face.
Okay, I'm gonna give you a statement and you tell me what you think it means.
Okay.
Love with your heart, but do not switch off your mind.
Well, when they say do not switch off your mind, that's telling you to pay attention to the flags, but you're not in love yet. Some people love too quickly. You love what you see. You love what's on the outside. Going back to those conditions, people fall in love with those superficial things before they even allow their minds to really explore who this person really is. So that's what my contradiction is with that statement. It's kind of catchy and beautiful, but does it make sense? No, it does not, because you're not going to love at all until you get to know this person to see if he's worth being loved. Because remember, if you value who you are as valuable as God has described us as women, your worth is worth seeing whether or not he's some value, because you already know your worth, but is there value in him? And so to fall in love with something that may not be of value to you, and you can't find anything that's worth in him, but you are already worthy, I mean, that's a waste of your time. So I disagree with that.
Okay, okay. Now we're going to talk about the different things. First, we're going to talk about dating apps.
Mhm.
Now, what is your take on dating apps?
Well, I was a little weary about it at first until I had these in-depth conversations with my daughters. And I said, you can still apply the same principles. Don't waste your time on those who, and that was one of the things I said earlier. They learn to ask early, what's your intentions? And so in getting to that answer, if they're, oh, I'm just here to have fun, I want to meet people, blah, blah, then swipe. You know, that's not the person that you're going to spend any time with, and don't waste your time. And one of the things my oldest daughter said to me, she said, I love this process, Mom, because I'm not wasting my time with these nobodies, you know, in a sense.
Right.
That's how she discovered her husband. And what's interesting, she discovered him on an app and found out that they had attended high school together, never noticed each other at all. That's how she met her husband. But she did do her due diligence to really get to know who this person is. So I don't have any bad things to say about apps. What I do know, and having conversations with my youngest daughter who uses them, is understand the app you're using. There are different levels and qualities of apps. There's some there's nothing but junk, and that's all you're going to find, and plenty of Carson and catfish on them. Is what I'm saying. So make sure you're using an app that's a quality app that has some scrutiny in what they do and selecting the people that are on there. That will help you in the beginning. It's not to say that everybody in there is a great opportunity for you, a great idea for a husband, but you still have to do your due diligence. But at least start with a quality app so that you're not stuck on some of these that has nothing but nobodies on it.
Mm-hmm. Do you think any of these apps are safe?
Well, you know, it goes back to what I said, that it's like we are comfortable inviting strangers into our space. And what these apps do is invite a lot of strangers into your space. And so again, you have to practice safety and being careful of what you do while you're on there. So there are some creeps on there. And so if you're doing your due diligence, then that's what you want to do. And that goes back to what I said. We become too open and not very careful with the people we meet. So you're meeting a whole bunch of strangers that is like going into a marketplace and there's a whole bunch of people there. You're meeting a whole bunch of guys in that marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no protection unless you exercise carefulness, unless you demonstrate that you're being careful and being careful with the people that you talk to. And so again, as part of your job to really scrutinize these guys and make sure you're keeping safe. You're definitely not going to offer them any personal information about you, where you live, your phone number. I mean, I didn't know that there were, you can get a phone number that is not, you know, your normal phone number like AT&T, they're Google numbers. And so you might get a Google number that's just for the purpose of your dating. Mm-hmm. So it's not your personal cell, it's not your phone number, any of that. So you just have to practice safety and keep in mind that this is just a group of strangers. You don't know these people. And until you get to know them, you want to make sure you're not getting a creep that's coming into your environment and will do everything he can to try to find out who you are. So 70s dating, you couldn't Google me. You couldn't Google my name. You couldn't find out where I live. Now, with all of these other systems in place, people can find out where you are. And so you have to be very careful in what you do. You might want to use a fictitious name until you get comfortable with somebody. Again, keeping your personal space safe. And I think that's really the priority in it. So that's the only reason I don't like it. I think it's just exposing yourself to so many strangers. But there has been success. My oldest daughter found success. She met the guy she knew from high school, and they've been married 11 years as of Monday.
Oh, wow. Okay. Do you think you can find true love on a dating app?
I would caution the find true love, because you can find that anywhere. So it's just not on a dating app. What I would say is still do your job. Stop thinking that everybody you see is going to be your true love. You've got to do your job in making sure you really scrutinize these guys to know who they really are. So it's possible. My daughter found true love, and we love our son-in-law. He's a wonderful guy. His family is wonderful. Now, the other thing I want to mention is that I cautioned them to get rid of these lists, because my daughter was looking for a football. You know, the Raiders were popular here in Oakland back then when she was dating. So that was the type of physique she was looking for. Well, when she met my son-in-law, she came home and told me, well, I guess I'm not going to wear heels anymore because we're the same height. And if I put on heels, I said, well, that's part of making adjustments. It's not important, but does he have those qualities is what's important. So when you set your sights on a certain look, even a certain ethnicity, because a lot of women, they rule out a lot of guys when they have set their hearts on a certain ethnicity. I hope you find the person in the group that you want. But sometimes we rule out the possibilities of the greatest love in your life when you do that. So I just like to say that God, heaven is full of people with no color. So I encourage my daughters to keep their hearts open, because you don't know who God is going to send to you and who he says is your perfect match. And I'm telling you, my little Filipino son-in-law is a perfect match for my daughter. One of the first things she said, Mom, I'm just enjoying having an intelligent conversation with someone who can be as logical as me. So again, you don't know who that guy is. So keep your heart open to what God has and keep God in the process so he can lead you in there. So that's my take on it. I'm not telling anybody not to marry Black. So please don't bash me for that. That's not what I'm saying. I am a Christian and I'm a believer, but I also believe that God has a man for you. Just make sure you're not ruling the man that God has for you, ruling them out because of your list.
Right, right. How do you feel about it's a lot of Christian dating apps out there, but do you feel that if a woman or a man wants to use a dating app, that they should use a Christian-based one than a secular dating app?
I think it should be whatever you're comfortable with, because everybody who claims to be a Christian are not. There's a lot of people on the Christian dating apps that are not Christians. They're just pretending to be. Just like on regular dating apps, I remember somebody put on theirs bold letters, I am a believer and a Christian. So guys would tend to try to pretend to be that for you. So you just have to be careful no matter what app it is. I don't necessarily feel like you have to go on a Christian dating app to find a Christian. You can find them anywhere, but just be careful. Do your due diligence. Whatever site you're comfortable with, whatever makes you comfortable. Because sometimes, in many of the Christian dating apps, may not have the age group that you're looking for, because you might have in your mind what age, how old of a guy you want versus how young of a guy you're looking for. I shouldn't say want, but again, those are conditions. But I'm just saying, you make that decision based on what you're comfortable with. But you can still do your due diligence no matter where they are, because your questions are going to be the same. That's one of the questions you're going to have. What's your relationship with God? That's one of the questions you're going to have. So whether they're on a Christian site or not, you're still going to ask that person that question. What do you do? You know, what assignment do you have? You know, all of that.
All right, now let's talk about your books. The Catch No One Wants, and then The Catch the Homework Basket. Now tell us a little about The Catch No One Wants.
The Catch No One Wants is a story based on a young lady who set out to be married by 30. Her name is Veronica Dawson. And in the story, she's now 32. So she's missed her deadline by 2 years. But in the meantime, her father, who's a pastor who teaches the singles in his church about dating with intent, which his daughter has gone through, is watching her make these dating mistakes. And he's trying to figure out, okay, God, how do I do an intervention with my daughter to help her? And so he prays and God tells him to use what he knows, which is basically fishing. He's an expert at it. So he decides, because he and his daughter has fished when she was young, he decides to invite her on a fishing trip together, just the two of them. And he creates these 5 stories, these analogies about fish and the behaviors that are similar to men. So he takes her on that. He talks about the catfish, and I won't get into detail unless you decide to. The catfish, the sturgeon, the salmon, the pufferfish, and the goldfish. And so in those stories, he chose 4 guys that 4 fish that represented 4 of the guys that she's dated, so she can see some of the mistakes that she made in selecting them. But she also was fortunate, because when she saw how the stories turned out, she was fortunate that she didn't stick with these guys. So in the end, she understands what her father was trying to tell her. And he also addresses the 5th fish to give her guidelines on the type of guy she should be looking for. And so he gives her a homework basket, wicked basket full of tools and workbooks for her to work on herself, because in her selecting the wrong guys, it identified her own poor self-worth and areas that she needed to work on herself. So he gave her all those tools. And so in the white book, that's the homework basket, where you get all the information that he provided her in that wicked basket at the end. And so that's why the 2 books. One, the Catch No One Want, is Christian contemporary fiction, and the Catch No One Want's homework basket is nonfiction, because you go into study questions. There are questions about each of the stories. So if you have a group you want to talk about it more, then you can use the questions at the beginning of the homework basket book. But it also includes some of those tips and tools that the father provided his daughter.
Okay. Well, the next 4 components we're going to talk about is out of the homework basket. The first one we're going to talk about is conditions versus characteristics.
Okay.
Now, what is there a difference between the 2? And if so, what are they?
Okay, so I'm going to turn to my book really quick so I can reference it. Conditions versus quality characteristics is found on page 40 in the book, in the homework basket. And it basically talks about some of the things I say that women get caught up on, even on using dating apps, even when deciding which guy to go out with in person. We look at the outward appearance. Those are conditions, and conditions change over time. That's really the definition in conditions. Those things that will change over time. We look at how he looks, how tall he is. We look at ethnicity, like I said earlier. We look at his physique, whether he works out, whether he doesn't work out, whether or not he's tall, short, bow-legged, slew-footed, whatever we think we want. A big afro, no hair, I want hair. All of those things are conditions. What kind of job he has to be making a certain income. All of those are conditions, because they change over time. And so that's the difference. Versus with the dating with intent strategy, there's specific questions you ask. Those questions are intended to get to the qualities that he has, so that you can get to the nitty gritty, get to the meat of what you should be looking for in a potential lifelong mate. Asking those questions specific. If you're a believer, then you definitely want to know if he's a believer. How much of a believer is he? Because we got these surface people who just surf around like you surfing on the ocean, these surface believers who are not committed believers. And so you want to really get into the questions that will determine what type of believer he is, how serious he is, how committed he is. What type of personality does he have? Is he committed to anything? Or is he one of those that will do something for a little while and hop around to something else? What type of career he has should be a question concerning his commitment to working, not whether or not his career matches yours. No, right. Sometimes that can be a boring match, by the way. Sometimes opposites do attract sometimes. Maybe your career is different from his because that's the way it's supposed to be. And so again, making sure that you know those questions to ask to get to the qualities that he has, not those temporary conditions. After 2 kids, I'm not the same size as the bride I was when I walked down the aisle. After being married 48 years, that beautiful afro I used to braid up at night for my husband is gone. So those are conditions. And there are men who have married women and made it clear, if you gain weight, I'm gone. That's a condition, and it's crazy to keep someone under the thumb like that. And it was crazy for women to accept arrangements like that. So that's why it was important to stress the differences.
Making a list. What are conditions you should not be using?
Tall, must be muscular. Bold legs, slewed feet, must be. Those are some, can't be short. Who says that a short man can't love you? Why would you do that? Must make a certain level of income because of where you are in your career. He has to match that. And it reminded me of the show, the one where they married at first sight. The girl had a condition that the guy make as much money as her, and Pastor Cal said, well, we couldn't find anybody that made as much money as her. So that's a condition, and it's ridiculous. As long as he's hardworking and committed at what he does, why do you care? That's a condition. And so he has to be a certain level in the church. You're not going to marry, some people won't marry you unless you're a minister, you're a pastor, you're a deacon in the church. Why is that a reason to marry someone? Because there are people in those offices that have challenges too. And so another condition, there's physical build, athletic versus non-athletic, skinny versus not heavy. Well, I'm not skinny. So why would I put that on the guy I would be looking for? So Why do women do that? Because conditions change, and that can flip very easily. I've seen people who married someone who was a certain size, a guy who was a certain size, but he grew over time. Would you leave him because he added on weight? So those are conditions. Has nothing to do with your character and the value you hold as a perfect mate for that person. The type of the color of their eyes, do you believe it? They have to have a certain eye color. The type of hair that they have. I don't want anybody that has bad hair. Well, what is bad hair? Because if you don't comb it, it's bad already. And so, against income level, where he lives, and he can't have any children. Those are all conditions.
So we should be looking for characteristics instead of conditions.
Absolutely, because what you're doing, don't complain if you hear these people says, the pool is small. Well, you made the pool small with your list.
So what characteristics should we be looking for?
Here are a few that are mentioned in the book. If you're a believer, he has to be a man of God. I mean, that would be at the top of my list as a believer. He has to be a man of God. My husband wasn't a believer. He grew more once we got married, but he was a believer in the beginning, and we both loved God. We also had one condition. We came from families from broken homes, where my mother was married twice, his parents were married twice. And one of the things we said in our conversation with each other is, look, get used to this face. Get used to this face. That's what we said. That's how committed we were when we went into our marriage. So he must love God, must be committed. He must be a leader in terms of he doesn't mind taking charge. Now, my husband was shy in terms of guys back in that day, but he was such a handsome guy to me. And yet he was one of those guys that wasn't stuck on his looks. That was attractive to me. He thought he was ugly. And I'm like, dude, have you seen your eyes? He wasn't caught up with who he looks like. And so that became an attraction for me. Someone who's a leader, and even though he's shy, don't mess with his family. That didn't say he wasn't a man. He may have been shy, but he will protect his family. And so that's what's important. Someone who will love and cherish his wife, who loves his mother. I didn't say a mama's boy, but he does love and respect the women in his family. Some guys really love their grandmothers. And then those who are good communicators, who don't mind opening up and sharing. And those are things you may want to do early on. Just kind of opening up and sharing. What do you think about this? Probably get to the nitty gritty of what he thinks about things so that you can kind of know who he is. A man of integrity. I'm not marrying a thief, but you gotta have some integrity and have some has to have some value in himself and who he is. Passionate and compassionate, selfless, someone who's protective. Like I said, my husband is very protective of his family. Encourager, giving, and committed, diligent worker. Doesn't have to have the same career that you have, but he still has to be someone who's diligent and hardworking. Takes care of himself, family oriented, and has family goals. If you have goals of adding to your family, or you have goals of having a family, does he have family goals? There are men, women have married them and knew in the beginning he did not want children and will leave you if you get pregnant. So you don't be disrespectful and disregard what he says he's looking for, because he may not be the one for you. And then supportive, and you can add others to the list. But that's just to get you started in terms of looking for quality.
Okay, now we'll talk about the 40-day rule, which is also in the homework basket. So what is the 40-day rule?
The 40-day rule comes from the definition of the number 40 in scripture, which says, and the homework basket's on page 33, it's the number 40, the definition in scripture says the number 40 represents testing and trial. So in the 40-day rule, it knocks down this idea that you have to hang around a guy for months, for years. I've seen women hung around a guy for 5 years and then married them, only to get divorced a short time later. And the reason for that was he was never committed. That's why he hung around you those 5 years. He was never committed. And so you got to make sure you're doing your due diligence about that. So 40 days, you got the number of tests and trials, that's the trial period. You have 40 days to discover what his intent is. And really that first question we talked about, you can discover his intent from there. What's your intent in marrying, in dating me? You know, what's your purpose in dating me? I mean, that is very easily gets to his intent. Well, I'm just here to have fun. Remember I said that? Then that tells you what his intent is. He's not interested in a long-term relationship. And so why hang out with him? So the 40 days, somewhere in there, if you are seeing someone and exploring what the possibilities are, he will declare what his intent is somewhere within that 40 days. And if you ask that question within the first few days, you already got the intent conversation. But if he goes past that and he says, I'm looking for my lifelong mate, okay, that tells you both have the same goal. It doesn't tell you that he's your perfect mate. It just tells you he has the same goal as you. And so your job now, just like his, he's not, my husband said, hands down, a man knows the woman he wants to marry the minute he meets her. He might not say it and he won't declare it right away, but at some point he will express to you what his intent is. And that's not 5 years from now, 7 months from now. It's going to be somewhere in there in terms of moving that relationship forward. And so the 40-day trial is what you need to apply.
Why is there even a 40-day rule?
Because of the fact that I mentioned we have no guidelines in the current dating process. Using the current process that people are practicing, you're not using any guidelines. And so here is your guideline. At some point within the 40 days, since God called 40 the trial period, then that's what we're going to call it in dating. Let's see what happens in this trial period, because again, you don't have to hang around with someone 5 years to determine if he's your one. 6 years. I read on Facebook, some woman said, okay, we're 6 months in. Should there be a point when we determine whether or not this is moving forward? I almost fell off my chair. I said, see, this is the stupid stuff we're doing. He knows, he knew the minute he met you. So why can't something be discussed within those 40 days in terms of what his intent is? And that's the whole idea. He already knows. He knows what he's going to how committed he is to you, and he knows exactly what your purpose is in his life in that moment. Is he there to just string you along? That could be his purpose. Is he there because he is a serious dater and he seriously is looking for the one that he wants to spend his life with? That could be it. But those are the things you should be discovering within those 40 days.
Declaring his intent in 40 days determines what exactly, what do we do in those 40 days?
He's gonna clarify what his goal is in moving your relationship forward. And so if he doesn't clarify it, you definitely need to ask some clarifying questions, because you don't want to waste your time. Again, he already knows. Keep that in mind. If a man knows the minute he meets you, what is 40 days to him? If he knows you are the one, he may do just like what you're doing, really taking his time to really explore you a little bit more, to really see, to confirm that you are the one for him. He may do that too. And as he should, just as you should. Okay, things are looking good. He's answering the right questions. Let's continue to explore to see where this is going, and let me continue to ask those pertinent questions so that I can get to who he really is, to confirm if he really is the one. He's doing the same thing with you that we're talking about in this book. Men are doing that all along. Mm-hmm. Women just don't do it because we're ready to get captivated. Mm-hmm. We want the dude on the white horse or the black horse, whichever horse you prefer. We just want him to ride in and sweep us away. This is not a Cinderella story where your eyes open and your prince is standing there ready to take you back to the castle. We have to do our job, do our due diligence to see if this is your prince.
Now we've been talking about dating questions. And now, what type of questions should be asked?
Okay, well, we give you a list of questions on page 44, and it's called the intentional dating questions. So let me just go over some of them. Here's the initial 5 questions. What is your purpose in dating me? You really want to know that. Why me? Why did he pick you up? Why did he swipe you? You know, those are the things you want to know. What is your purpose? What is his goal? And there you should find from in his response whether or not he's a serious dater too, whether or not he's looking to find his lifelong mate. What are your short-term goals? What's your plan for your life? What's your short-term goals in terms of us? What are your long-term goals for your life? Is your goal to eventually find someone to marry? How do you plan to get there? All of that. And what are your plans for this relationship? So question 1 and question 4 are very similar, but it's just said differently. And the reason you say it differently so that you can see what kind of answer you get for 1 and 4. And so that's important. Okay. And it should be similar.
When should these questions be asked?
Right away. In the book, we put these 4 questions as the initial questions. Look, don't waste your time. If his goal is not marriage, if he's not looking for a lifelong mate, why would you waste your time? Because you'll get that answer in question 1 and 4. It's a wrap at that point. Stop wasting your time. So your 10 minutes were served well talking to him, asking those questions, and then you can move on. It didn't take 40 days for that. And it does not take months and years for that. You can know right away. Because there are also questions, spiritual questions in terms of what his relationship with God. Mm-hmm. There's also questions related to what you ask each other. He may ask you something too, in terms of his commitment. What church does he attend? What's his personal testimony? How did he commit to God? What was the deciding factor that made you turn to God? It's a lot of questions you want to know. And then, you know, there are other questions you want to ask in terms of examining him. What are the characteristics you found so far that you like about him? What are the ones you don't like? What are the red flags you've seen so far? All of those. How does he treat you or talk to his mom? Have you seen any of those interactions yet? Those questions come later, but the initial questions help you to scrutinize him right away.
I had a question in my mind that just slipped my mind. Well, I'm asking next. What are some questions that should you ask that? I cannot think of the question I want to ask. When asking a question, what should you be looking for? What answers should you be looking for?
What is your purpose in dating me? If I'm looking for marriage and that is my goal, what's his goal? That's all you're asking. What's your goal in talking to me? What is it that you're hoping to find or discover about me? Why did you swipe me? What was the purpose in your doing that? What did you see? What was your purpose? What is your goal? And what you want to hear is his goal is the same as yours. Look, I'm tired of the dating scene. I'm ready to settle down. I'm just exploring the possibility of finding the person that God has for me. That's it. If you don't hear that, close the book. Because you don't need to ask anymore.
Okay.
He's already told you what, and I don't mean close the book after that question. I mean, close the book if he can't say that. If he says, I'm just looking to spend some time with someone, I just want to have fun. I'm looking to go out, someone who can join me in my business meetings. I'm just looking for someone that can enjoy social events I have to go to. That's what I mean by closing the book. But when he answers that question, like I just said, I'm tired of the dating scene. I'm just looking for my lifelong mate. That's a great place to start. So now you can move on to your next process, the next questions, the other things you want to find out about it. That right there will say, okay, he answered that one. His goal is the same as mine. If his goal is not the same as yours, there's no reason to continue it.
Now, the question I'm going to ask you. In the beginning of the first chapter of The Catch No One Wants, Veronica is at the restaurant with a potential suitor.
Mm-hmm.
Should she have asked the questions before they got to the date at the restaurant or during that date at the restaurant?
She had only known that man for 2 weeks. That was too soon to go out on a date, especially to an expensive restaurant that he chose and then left her there with the $165 bill. All of those mistakes she made, she didn't know enough about this guy yet. He didn't know enough about her. He may have been stringing her along to see where things were going to go until he got stuck at that restaurant. He probably couldn't pay that bill. That was my feeling, that for him to get out of there so quickly. But I'm saying that she didn't do her due diligence. She should have been asking all these questions we're talking about very early on. She had 2 weeks to really figure this guy out. And who wants to meet somebody in person that you really don't know yet? Who does that?
So when should she have met this particular suitor?
After she had some of these questions answered, that as they were talking over the phone, she should have been specific with what she was looking for. She should have been specific. And so she would have heard what his intents were. He never got a chance to express his intention for going out on a date with her because she never asked. And that's the problem. We don't ask anything, and we should. And all of those things would have helped her to determine if she was going to even go out on a date with him. She asked nothing. She knew nothing about this guy. That was enough to go out on the date. And that's the thing we do. With the current dating process, we think that everything we do with meeting a person, okay, let's go out on a date. No, I'm not going anywhere with you until I understand who you are and your purpose of being in my life. If it's not the right goal, right purpose, then I'm not doing anything. And she should have done that. 2 weeks and no questions were asked.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, the last one is your why.
Hey, Miss Queenie, did he even work? She didn't even ask. She doesn't even have a job.
Well, yeah. Okay, our last one is the wise counsel. Who should be your wise counsel? What is the wise counsel?
The wise counsel, and I kind of talked about it earlier, and how the makeup of the family used to be, when we had senior members in our family we can go to who were our wise counsel. Used to be our parents. That's not always possible. Then it was like the aunt or an uncle or sometimes a grandparent we can go to who's been married a long time that we could get some wise counsel from. We don't have that anymore, which is why we have so many coaches. We got life coaches. Life coaches was my Aunt Marie. Life coaches, my life coach was her. My life coach was my mom when she was alive, or somebody who was senior in my family. We don't have that. So now we have all these coaches. Dating coaches, we didn't have that. Grandma was my dating coach. Aunt Marie was my dating coach. All of those people. And then sometimes it was my friends who also had a goal to get married. So that's why we have the Wise Counsel now. In the Wise Counsel, it is a group of people that you select that would be there to help you to vet this guy. So before Veronica went on that date with that guy that left her at the restaurant, she should have been parading him around if that's what she wanted to do, had she asked the right questions. The first event would have been to parade her around those wise people in her life that would help to vet him. And she didn't. Had she gotten to that place, that's what she would have done at the next step. So your wise counsel are people you have chosen who knows your goal to get married. And because sometimes our heart get in the way in truly vetting the guy, which sometimes we get tripped up on some things that we shouldn't be, your wise counsel will help to scrutinize him a little more and examine him a little more, and then give you that feedback. And you have to trust what they say, because it used to be your dad, it used to be my Aunt Marie, it used to be a senior member in your family that would do that. So now you have a wise counsel. Doesn't cost you anything. You don't have to go to a paid coach. You have a wise counsel that can do that and help you with that. So it could be a member from your church. It can be a mother from your church. It can be a pastor. Any of those people who have experience and understands marriage will help you to vet that guy.
So what qualifications should your wise counsel have?
One, they should be wise. It's interesting that I had a conversation with the beautician, the hairdresser yesterday, and she was just blown away with the concept of the book. Can't wait to get it. And we were talking about that and talking about the wise counsel to make up the family and all of that. But one of the things that we should not do is pick those single friends who are single for a reason and don't want to see you married because they want to beat you to the punch. And so if you got single friends with an ulterior motive, they're definitely not going to be on your wise counsel. Not to say you single friends will be great. Some of them who have the same goal as you will learn along with you, so they can be on your wise counsel. People who are married already can help you to pick up on things that will be positive, maybe some things that you might think is negative, but in their eyes isn't. But parading him around and at least giving them the opportunity to meet them will help them to do that. So these people must exhibit some kind of wisdom, must have some kind of experience already. A lot of the single friends don't have experience because they're still single for that reason, but you do want to have a few that may be doing the same thing as you, looking to really scrutinize a guy and making sure they're careful with dating so that they're picking out guys that have the best qualities to explore.
When you don't have wise counsel, where can you go to find these people?
I mentioned the church as one. There are certainly neighbors or family, friends, or people that you have connected with over your life that can possibly serve as that. But again, people who care about you, people who would exhibit wisdom, and people who know how to look for those attributes. We're not looking for people, baby, I just want you to be married. No, that's not the wise counsel type. We want somebody, I want you to be married. I love and care about your future, and I will help you to scrutinize this man. Those are the people you want on there. So it doesn't have to be, anything etched, any person kind of etched in stone. We didn't specify that. Just your hand-picked people. There's no number, but just get a crew of folks that you trust who will vet the guy, and that's the people you want to parade him around. So they get to meet him, get to talk with him, get to see what he's all about, all of that. And then give you feedback.
What is parade around principle?
That's what I just talked about. The parade around principle is in the the book too, and I'm going to turn to the page and see if it's on page 35. And what that means is that goes back to what I was saying, that kind of craziness where people were in this place where, I didn't want anybody in my business. Well, a lot of those women ended up dead, not wanting anybody in their business because they ended up with guys they should not have been with. So we're not looking for that. Some of those women ended up in toxic relationships. Had they been examined by somebody else, they would have picked up on the red flags and convinced her. I remember um, having someone I had to help encourage to get out of an abusive relationship. And it broke my heart when they wouldn't. They just went right back to the guy. When you parade them around, these people are the people you trust. So you can't have your heart so close that you won't trust their wisdom when they tell you, I see something about this person that's not good. This is not a good person for you. You're going to have to be committed to your counsel too and trust them when you parade them around. So parade around principle is just that. Expose them to that group of people you've selected for your wise counsel, whatever way you deem appropriate. You guys might go and meet at a restaurant. You guys, and this may be somewhere down the line where you've already seen some of the things that you like as quality characteristics. You've already asked the questions. You've already spent a little time with this person, and it looks like something that could be a possibility. You definitely want to parade him within that 40 days. You're not parading him around months later, but at least, when you get to the point where you begin to meet him in person, one of those in-person events should have your parade around your wise counsel. You should be parading him around that wise counsel. So it could be any kind of hanging out at the house event. It could be, let's meet at a restaurant, any kind of place that you want to do it, but you should expose that person to your wise counsel. So that's the parade around. Parade him around the people that matters so they can vet him and see who he is.
Why have a wise counsel?
Because your heart is too close to the situation sometimes, even with all the questions we talked about asking, even with all the things you put in place to be more strategic about your dating. Sometimes your heart just falls too quickly and too fast. And so then you begin to miss some of those red flags that you should pay attention to, or you can't see it because your heart is too close now. So you've gotten to the place like, oh, this has to be the one. He's checking all about boxes. He's answered all the right questions. Not quite yet. Let's see how he passes Aunt Marie. Let's see if he can pass my Uncle Carl. Let's see if he can get past my friend Stacy or Tracy, whatever you decide. Those are the people you want to parade him around. Let me see what my pastor has to say about it, because he's a man. Make sure there's a male in your wise counsel too, because he can see things that women don't pick up on. And so therefore, you can really get some good feedback, especially if there's a man on your wise counsel as well. So that's kind of what you want to see.
Okay, that's all the questions I have, but I would love for you to ask, where can we find your books?
My books are available on my website, drvelma.com. They're available on all storefronts, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. I've seen it at Walmart, but online bookstores, it's available. You can go there to find them.
And what are you currently working on right now?
Should I say? I'm currently working on By Demand. The audience who have read the book cannot believe how they've met and dated some of the guys in the book. The catfish who loves garbage, the salmon who doesn't like to get caught, the sturgeon who likes to nibble and move on, kind of the grab and go, the pufferfish who's beautiful until he's agitated, he becomes dangerous and poisonous. And so they said they dated all four of those guys and have asked for more officiality. So that's what's coming up. But you won't know and you won't see it Unless you're following my page, you can follow me on Instagram. You can follow me on Facebook as Dr. Velma Bagby. You can also join my newsletter. Make sure you connect on my page because there's going to be a surprise pop-up soon. So those stories are coming.
All right. Well, thank you for coming in today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Quinny. You had some tough questions today. I appreciate your questions.
All right. This is Clem with Quinny's Book Talk and Reviews. Happy reading. Bye, y'all.